One of the most recognizable characters in the history of fiction, a creature of the night, immortal, aristocratic, monstrous. Here is what the story never tells you. The name was real, the man who carried it was real, and the real man was considerably more terrifying than anything Bram Stoker put on the page. Because the real Dracula did not drink blood. He did something worse. He understood his enemies so completely. Their fears, their psychology, the specific texture of what they could not bear to face, that he used that knowledge to stop the most powerful army in the known world dead in its tracks. This is not a horror story. It is a story about what gets built inside a person when you take them at 11 years old and hand them to their enemies. Wallachia in the 1440s is one of the most precarious pieces of ground in Europe. A small principality wedged between the Kingdom of Hungary and the Ottoman Empire, it survives by reading which way the wind is blowing and bending accordingly. In 1442, the wind is blowing from the south. Sultan Murad II wants a guarantee of loyalty from the Wallachian ruler, a man called Vlad II, known as Vlad Dracul. Dracul, dragon. He had been inducted into the Order of the Dragon, a Christian crusading order founded specifically to defend Europe against the Ottoman advance. The name was a mark of honor, a crusader's badge. The Sultan wants his loyalty secured. The price of that security is his children. Vlad Dracul hands over two of his sons, Vlad, aged around 11 or 12, and his younger brother Radu, who is 7. They are taken into the Ottoman court as hostages. Collateral, human insurance. The father rides home. The boys stay. What happens to two boys handed to a foreign empire depends entirely on how old they are when it happens. Radu is 7. At 7, the world is still elastic. A child that age can adapt to almost anything, a new language, a new religion, a new identity. The Ottoman court becomes his world because he is young enough to let it. He learns the language. He converts to Islam. He grows up charming, sociable, beloved. The Ottomans call him Radu the Handsome. He becomes a close companion of Murad's son, the young prince Mehmed, who will one day be known as the conqueror of Constantinople. By some accounts, the relationship becomes something more than friendship. Radu does not resist the life he has been given. He inhabits it completely. Vlad is 11. Old enough to know exactly what has happened, old enough to understand that his father made a calculation, and the calculation had a price, and the price was him. He does not adapt. He does not convert. He does not charm. He watches. He learns the language because language is intelligence. He studies the Ottoman military because knowledge of your enemy is the only weapon available to a boy in a cage. He trains, riding, combat, everything they will teach him, because a body being prepared is a body with a future. And underneath all of it, patient and cold and completely invisible to the people around him, he keeps something intact that no amount of Ottoman hospitality can reach. He is filing everything away, every weakness, every pattern, every detail of how this empire thinks and moves and frightens people into submission. He does not know yet what he is going to do with it. He knows he is going to do something. In 1447, while the brothers are still hostages, word reaches them that their father has been assassinated, murdered in the marshes by Wallachian boyars, the noble families who run the principality and answer to whoever pays them best. Their older brother Mircea has been tortured, blinded, and buried alive. Vlad receives this news inside an Ottoman fortress. He adds it to everything else he is carrying. He is released in 1448. He is somewhere around 17 years old. The Ottomans install him on the Wallachian throne as their man, a compliant former hostage who owes them everything and will do what he is told. He lasts 2 months before Hungarian-backed forces drive him out. He flees. He maneuvers. He changes sides, allies with the Hungarians, learns everything they can teach him about fighting the Ottomans, and spends the next 8 years working his way back to the throne. In 1456, he takes it. This time, he has no intention of being removed. His first act is to invite the boyar families, the nobles responsible for his father's death, to a banquet. They come, they do not leave, The older lords are impaled before the evening is over. The younger ones are marched to build his mountain fortress at Poenari. The message requires no translation. The 6 years that follow are the years that make the legend. Vlad rules Wallachia through a combination of genuine governance and systematic terror that is so precisely calibrated, it starts to look less like cruelty and more like policy. He protects merchants. He establishes trade laws. He builds roads. He enforces order with a consistency that makes his principality, by contemporary accounts, one of the safer places in the region to conduct business, provided you conduct it honestly. There is a story, possibly true, possibly legend, probably both, that he placed a golden cup on a public fountain in the capital for travelers to drink from. It was never stolen. Nobody in Wallachia stole anything twice. Fear, Vlad understands, is not a blunt instrument. It is a precision tool. Applied correctly, it does not create chaos. It prevents it. The stake is not about cruelty. It is about communication. He is communicating constantly, and his audience extends well beyond Wallachia. Then in 1462, Mehmed II, Radu's companion, the conqueror of Constantinople, the most formidable military commander in the known world, sends envoys to Vlad demanding tribute. Vlad has the envoys' turbans nailed to their heads. Then he crosses the Danube and kills 23,000 Turks and Bulgarian Muslims in 2 weeks. He writes the number down in a letter to his allies, precise to the last body. Mehmed raises an army. Contemporary estimates range from 100,000 to considerably more. Whatever the true number, it dwarfs anything Vlad can field. Vlad does not meet it in the open. He has spent years studying what the Ottomans fear. He knows exactly how to use that knowledge. He burns his own crops, poisons his own wells, drives plague-infected cattle toward Ottoman supply lines, sends civilians carrying disease to mingle with Turkish soldiers in their camps. He moves through the forests with cavalry, hitting foraging parties and supply columns in the dark, then vanishing before a response can form. The Ottomans cannot pin him down. They cannot feed themselves. The chronicler Tosun Beg writes that the heat was so brutal, soldiers could cook meat on their own armor. And then, on the night of June 17th, Vlad does something that could only be done by a man who spent his childhood inside the empire he is fighting. He disguises himself as an Ottoman officer. He walks into the Turkish camp using accent-free Turkish, the language they put into him when he was 11 years old, the language of the court that took him from his father, and he locates the Sultan's tent. Everything they built into him, every year of captivity, every forced immersion in their culture and their language and their way of thinking, he has just turned around and used to walk through their lines in the dark. He leads a cavalry force directly into the heart of the camp. The goal is to kill Mehmed personally. He does not reach him. The Janissaries rally and drive the raiders back, but the chaos is total. Ottoman units attack each other in the darkness. By dawn, the camp is shattered, and Mehmed knows he is not fighting a conventional opponent. He regroups. He marches on the Wallachian capital of Targoviste. He finds it abandoned, gates open, no defenders. And then his army crests the hill outside the city and stops. In front of them is a field approximately 2 miles long and half a mile wide, covered in stakes, 20,000 of them. Each one carrying a body, Ottoman soldiers, Ottoman officers, arranged by rank so that the hierarchy of the dead mirrors the hierarchy of the living. The highest officials on the tallest stakes, the lowest on the shortest. The Greek historian Chalkokondyles, who was present in the Ottoman court, records Mehmed's reaction. The Sultan looked at the field and said it was not possible to deprive of his country a man who had such a diabolical understanding of how to govern his realm and its people. Coming from the conqueror of Constantinople, that is not an insult. That is one commander recognizing another. Mehmed orders a trench dug around the Ottoman camp to prevent further night raids. The next day, he withdraws. He does not send another army. He sends Radu, the brother who stayed, the one who adapted against the one who did not. Radu knows Wallachia. He knows the boyar families Vlad has been terrorizing. One by one, they defect. Vlad's support base collapses from within, and he is forced to flee to Hungary to seek reinforcements. He spends years rebuilding. He marries into the Hungarian royal family, he converts to Catholicism, he does whatever is required. In 1476, he comes back. He takes the throne of Wallachia for the third time. He holds it. Wallachia holds. The son of the dragon, raised inside the empire his father's order was built to stop, turned everything that empire put into him against it. He did not save Christendom. He did not need to. He saved one small principality on the wrong side of a border 3 times against every force that came for it. If you want more from the series, subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Facebook. Ash and Iron. Every week,